Okay, picture this. It's 1869.
Right.
Ships are vanishing, just disappearing under the waves. And the rumors start flying. Some kind of huge sea monster. The whole world is talking about it.
Yeah, it's this massive mystery.
Exactly. So today we're diving into a really interesting source. It's an excerpt from a Turkish podcast, and they're talking all about Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Think of this as your sort of quick immersion into what makes this novel tick. No spoilers, promise.
And what's great, I think, is how that initial mystery, the whole sea monster thing, it's really just the hook. It draws you into something much deeper.
Right.
This Turkish podcast we looked at, it's clearly made by real fans.
Yeah.
For other Verne lovers, adventure fans, sci-fi folks.
You need to tell.
And they get right into the bigger ideas pretty quickly. So our mission here is basically to pull out the coolest insights from their chat. Give you a fast but hopefully solid feel for the book, maybe get you curious enough to read it yourself.
Absolutely. And right at the heart of it all, you've got Professor Pierre Aronnax is this top marine biologist.
Okay.
His assistant, Conseil, super loyal. And then Ned Land, this tough Canadian harpooner.
Got it. The core crew.
Yeah. And their job, hunt down this supposed monster. But let me tell you, what they actually find is, well, it's beyond anything they could have imagined.
And the Turkish podcast makes a really good point here that the novel, written way back in 1869, is this incredible mix of science fiction and pure adventure.
It really is Verne at his best, isn't it?
Totally. He just blends the science of his day with these huge leaps of imagination. It's seamless.
Okay, let's get into the core of it then. Captain Nemo. Our source podcast jumps right on him. He's not just some character, is he? He's described as a total enigma.
Yeah, riddle is a good word for it. That's what Verne does so well with Nemo. He keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
Like, who is this guy with this unbelievable submarine?
Right.
Is he a genius inventor, some kind of rebel against society? Or is he maybe running from a dark past? The Turkish podcast really highlights how these questions are key. They're what keeps you hooked, trying to piece Nemo together.
And you can't talk about Nemo without talking about the Nautilus.
Oh, definitely not.
The source material calls it like a futuristic marvel, part sub, part fortress.
Spot on. And it's not just transport, is it? It's crucial. It's like a window to the ocean's secrets, as the Turkish host put it so well.
That's a great phrase.
And they also talk about Verne's descriptions, how vivid they are. You almost feel like you're in the Nautilus, seeing the control room, the corridors.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're looking at these incredible underwater scenes, coral reefs, deep sea caves. It feels like you're right there exploring with them.
It's quite immersive. Now, let's maybe zoom out a bit. Jules Verne himself, our source calls him the father of science fiction, basically.
And rightly so. Born in France, 1828. He was meant to be a lawyer, apparently.
Oh, really? Didn't I?
Yeah. But luckily for us, his real passion was telling stories.
Phew. Close call.
And, his big series, The Voyages Extraordinaires, that really changed adventure writing. The Turkish podcast mentions classics like Journey to the Center of the Earth, Around the World in 80 Days.
Yeah, the big ones.
The Mysterious Island, too. They weren't just thrilling tales. They had this layer of scientific thinking, wonder, real curiosity about the world.
And 20,000 Leagues is often seen as the crown jewel of that series, right?
Absolutely. It just brings everything together. The science, the adventure, the characters, the mystery. It's all there.
So it's more than just a cool underwater trip. What are the deeper themes the Source podcast picked up on?
Well, they definitely talk about curiosity. You see that so strongly in Professor Aronnax, his drive to understand. Then there's this really strong theme of freedom, or the desire for it.
Yeah.
Especially with Nemo and his whole, self-exile.
Right, cutting himself off.
Exactly. And they also focus on the human element, the clashes, Aronnax the scientist, Ned Land, the practical guy who just wants to get back home.
Or wants to hunt something.
Yeah. And Conseil, who's just steady and observant. When they crash into Nemo's world, it creates this amazing tension between their different viewpoints and what they want.
Yeah.
It's dangerous, but fascinating.
And it's not just the human drama. You mentioned the descriptions. The ocean itself feels almost like another character.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
The Turkish podcast really emphasizes Verne's skill here. How he describes things like underwater forests.
Yeah, amazing imagery.
Or creatures that glow in the dark, or these haunting shipwrecks on the ocean floor. The Nautilus journey, it shows you things that are just breathtaking, but also kind of chilling sometimes.
But circling back to Nemo, what's really driving him, that's the central question, isn't it? Our Source podcast keeps coming back to that.
It is. And Verne, quite deliberately, I think, doesn't just hand you the answer.
No neat little explanation.
Not at all. The Turkish podcast talks about the possibilities. Is it pure freedom he wants? Is it revenge for something awful that happened? Or something else entirely we don't even guess at? And that ambiguity is important. It lists the book beyond just, adventure story. It gets into these big ideas of technology, humanity, liberty, while still being a page-turner.
It's pretty wild to think that submarines were barely even conceptual when he wrote this.
I know. His foresight is incredible. The Turkish podcast points this out too. He's imagining tech decades ahead of its time.
That's probably why it still feels so relevant, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah. It makes it this timeless read for anyone interested in science, exploration, the human spirit, all that stuff.
And this whole journey, as the Turkish podcast notes, it really changes everyone involved. Aronnax, Ned, Conseil, and Nemo himself, probably most of all.
Definitely. It pushes them all to their limits, challenges what they believe, who they're loyal to.
You get those moments of pure wonder, right? Seeing the ocean's beauty.
Yeah, but then also real heart-pounding danger. And that moral gray area starts to creep in.
Especially regarding Nemo.
Exactly. As you learn more about him, through Aronnax's eyes mainly, you start to question things. Who's right? Who's wrong? It's not simple.
So, wrapping things up a bit, why should someone pick up 20,000 Leagues today? It's, 150 years old?
Well, the Turkish podcast sums it up nicely, I think. It's still relevant because it taps into something fundamental in us, that desire to explore, to question things, to dream of doing the impossible.
While building your own Nautilus?
Maybe. Whatever your personal Nautilus might be. That dream of charting your own course.
And this deep dive, like the Turkish podcast it came from, it's really just scratching the surface. They're apparently covering all of Verne's work.
Yeah, which sounds amazing. They mentioned doing Journey to the Center of the Earth around the world in 80 days. It really shows the scope of Verne's imagination, his whole extraordinary universe, as they call it.
That mix of science, adventure, mystery.
Exactly. It's quite a legacy.
So maybe a final thought for you listening as we finish up here. Think about the unexplored territories in your own world, maybe even within yourself. What mysteries might be waiting just beneath the surface? Like the crew of the Nautilus, you never know what wonders, or maybe what questions, you might uncover if you decide to take a look.